I'm going to share with you how I go about taping my paper down onto my surface before I start painting. You'll notice that there are actually two lines that I've drawn here, and it's basically a border that goes all the way around. The objective here was to paint a 12 by 16 piece of artwork. What I did was I have larger sheets of paper, larger than 12 by 16. So I went ahead and cut a piece of paper that would be larger than 12 by 16. And this is actually about 12 and a half by 16 and a half. And the reason I do that is because you always want to have some space along the edge to allow you to tape down the paper to the surface that you're using. Why do I have two lines? I like my paintings to have a white border around the actual image. So if I'm trying to paint a 12 by 16 artwork, I will actually account for about a 1/4 inch of white space all around the actual artwork. So the final product will be a 12 by 16 piece of paper that has an image on it plus a white border. And that white border is within the 12 by 16 dimension. In effect, we're probably getting, if it's a 1/4 inch all around, the image itself will be about 11 and a half inches by 15 and a half inches. So I draw two lines here because that helps me know where to place the tape. So for example, I'm going to place the tape along that inner line, and this is just for example. Otherwise I would tape all the way across. I would tape all the way up to that inner border because the more surface area that can actually be under the tape, the better it will hold to the surface and the better it will prevent curling up of the paper when you're painting. So once I've finished the artwork, I've let it dry, let's say at least half a day. 24 hours is ideal. I would take this off, and then you'll have a nice clean border of the artwork here. And this line here that's remaining allows you to see where the outer edge of the paper ought to be. And then I would simply cut away that extra paper up to this first line, and then we'll have a perfectly sized 12 by 16 piece of paper in the end. One other tip here is when you're actually taping, I recommend using a full length of tape to cover the entire length of that side of paper. This helps prevent any unwanted lines where if you used more than one piece of tape to cover this whole area, the place where the two pieces of tape overlap might allow water to soak through, and then you might have just a few stray lines of color going past the edge of the image that you want. So that's another tip, where basically use a whole strip of tape to cover that whole end. And likewise for the length of this piece of paper, you want to do the same thing. So one long strip of tape. So you're going to use 4 pieces of tape to cover all 4 sides of the piece of paper. When you have put the tape down, it's helpful to either use your fingernail or use an object to push the tape down and basically make sure there's no air bubbles. This will help ensure that the paper stays put when it gets wet. As I'm taping up all 4 sides, I'm making sure that the tape overlaps nicely at each corner. And I'm using a Blick artist tape. I do recommend their tape. I use it all the time. And I'm using my fingernail to go over the edges here, make sure the tape is very snug and I'm getting rid of pockets of air that could cause the tape to lift off. You want to make sure that the part of the tape that's on the paper is also very solidly adhering to the paper. So just run over that with your fingertip a few times. And this is how I normally would start a painting.